I'm definitely not gonna buy doTERRA now because of this video, Lance. See, and just like, and sometimes they like, it's almost like they're threatening me with their lack of purchase, which is kind of like saying, I'm not gonna eat broccoli because you told me. Hey, this is Lance McGowan here, and today I'm going to talk about the doTERRA versus Young Living hater comments that I've received after doing kind of all my doTERRA versus Young Living videos, and the truth about Gary Young, and why Krista Trammell left Young Living and then went to doTERRA. So I've received a lot of comments, a lot of which got blocked by YouTube for having bad words in them, which I'm not going to repeat today because obviously that would be family friendly. And we're gonna take the high road, right? We're not gonna stoop to that level. Okay, but the comments that made it through have a lot of patterns involved with them, and so I want to cover a little bit about that and what I've learned along the way, because all of this has really been a personal development opportunity for me on learning to handle constructive criticism as well as deconstructive criticism from myself. And then knowing that obviously I can't control other people, but I can influence or help educate them on maybe some of the things that I see in their own life, and maybe how things could help them in other areas like conflict resolution, or how do you respectfully disagree with somebody or have an intelligent discussion with somebody without trying to, slam them, jab them, or punch them because you got triggered. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep it real with you, all right? All right, so here's the top 5 patterns that I see. So there's a number of things, but the main kind of fundamental thing that I see, and everyone has it, we're not always aware of it, and these are going to be kind of more psychology principles, and some people are like, oh, you're using psychology, Lance, but it's really just the study of the mind and human behavior, and that's going to be evidence in everything, and the more self-awareness you can have in these areas, the better you're going to be able to interact with others. So that's really the intent, but it's basically presumptions, and so presumptions are basically when somebody believes something to be true, and anybody that contradicts that is automatically wrong. And so when it comes to doTERRA versus Young Living, you can probably guess how that will play out. So if you are for doTERRA, then if somebody says anything against that, then they're going to be wrong. Or if you're for Young Living, if anybody says anything against Young Living, then the other person's automatically going to be wrong. And so that's not necessarily a good approach. I mean, we should look at the truth or the facts behind things and kind of, call things as they are. Maybe, hey, I don't like that thing, or I don't agree with that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily mean the other person's wrong. And if you're trying to be reasonable, then we shouldn't try to be right all the time or win, because it's not a tennis match, right? A reasonable person should focus on truth and seeking understanding. All right, number 2 is unreasonableness. So I just kind of mentioned reasonableness and unreasonableness, but unreasonable people focus on wanting to be right and wanting to win, and it's more of a focus on the problem, not a solution. And so a lot of times unreasonable people will stage dramas, or in the digital realm would be people troll in order to try to get a reaction out of somebody, or just really, they're drama filled in order to avoid personal wrongness. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. I don't like to admit that we're wrong, but an unreasonable person hasn't developed the skills or the reasonable muscles of humility, reliability, responsibility, self-awareness, to really just own when they are wrong or not completely right. And so that's definitely a pattern I see in the comment section. A lot of people, basically projecting. They're like, hey, quit bashing, when they themselves are bashing. It's like, hey, quit throwing stones, when they themselves are throwing boulders, right? They're not taking the log out of their own eye before trying to take the speck out of someone else's. And then, there are a lot of times you'll be like, whoa, what are you, perfect, Lance? And it's just like, it's interesting because, number one, I never said I was. I'm far from it. And even in the comments, I pin comments and say that I'm far from it as well. I've made lots of mistakes, but it's interesting how people interpret things and kind of twist them. But that's in any conversation, really, when somebody has an agenda, or if they just don't understand how to interact with others in a more constructive way. All right, so the third pattern that I see is cognitive bias. I think a lot of times people, that's probably one of the most comments I get is, Lance, you're so biased, clearly. Like, it's funny, like, I'm not wearing anything with doTERRA on it, and then if I've made videos like that and talked about doTERRA and Young Living, and then people are like, oh, you're not wearing anything that shows you're with doTERRA, so therefore you're hiding your affinity, or you're hiding your interest, or you're hiding your affiliation. That's not transparent. And then when I wear doTERRA logos or something that shows that, I rep doTERRA as my, oil family, people are like, see, I told you, of course you're gonna say something that's for doTERRA or against Young Living because you're biased, Lance. And it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't win for losing. Not that I'm trying to win, but at the same time, it's just like people are always going to have a problem with what you're doing no matter what you're doing. That's why I still try to be respectful, but just keep it fact-based. But yet people still have a problem with that because they're trying to win or they're trying to be right, and they get triggered with the truth. And when they get triggered, they you could do fight or flight, right? Those are the two responses. And a lot of times I don't get comments, so maybe people are flighting, they're getting out of there. But sometimes people leave comments. And when they do, they ready to unleash the wrath and the negative emotions that they're feeling, oftentimes in the form of projection, which is basically instead of taking this bag of poop that's on fire in my hands, I'm going to take it and throw it at you instead. Instead of me trying to put out the fire, letting the smell just totally just knock my nostrils out and appropriately throw it away and just take care of this mess, I'm going to throw it at you instead. And that's basically what happens when people project, and that's really common in my comment section on these types of videos, especially from the haters that I'm talking about. And another thing that comes up is, well, just because I disagree with you, Lance, does that make me automatically a hater, so I can't have an opinion, so I can't disagree with you? No, you absolutely can disagree. I actually encourage you to disagree, or at least have an opinion, and hopefully you can support some of what you say with facts or sources, which is going to kind of come into my other thing I'm going to mention in a second here. But it's not necessarily what you agree or disagree with, it's how someone disagrees. Because a lot of times they're not saying, like, hey Lance, I see your points, but I disagree with A, B, and C, and here's why. No, they're pretty much just like, shame on you, you're sinful. They try to do some type of like biblical reference, even though they themselves are contradicting themselves in some like way that lacks humility or lacks kindness. And then there's lots of other ways that they're just basically contradicting themselves. And I mean, if I contradict myself or something and somebody points it out, or if I have a misspelling or something needs updated, I'll be like, hey, yeah, I need to work on that or something, or I'll make an update video or something like that. But it's just interesting how it all plays out in that way. Let's talk about the fourth thing, though, and it's cognitive dissonance. This is when somebody can't hold two opposing beliefs in their head at the same time. So they basically can't say, I believe doTERRA is number one and I believe Young Living is number one. It has to be one or the other. But the reality is that the companies have pros and cons. Each company could be number one in one area, but number two in the next, or number three in another. And so, you got service, you got quality, you got price, you've got a lot of other things like sourcing, transparency, founders, like there's so many elements of a company, and to just say this one is the best or this one's number one without qualifying it with exactly what areas, even how often that is, or what ways to verify those things, is going to be key. And some people are like, oh, it's too complicated, Lance. They're just the best. Okay, they're just the best. And that's fine. That's fine to have an opinion, but for me, it's important to have opinions, but it's also important to have facts to support if you're going to come to a conclusion, because that would make it accurate and more legitimate or credible in that situation. All right, and the final thing, and this is what I kind of already mentioned, but that I see, this is the fifth pattern, is confirmation bias. And so people will basically, confirmation bias is when people look for things to support their own position or agenda. So it's basically, hey, I believe Young Living is the best company. So a little cognitive dissonance out there, because if they believe doTERRA can't also be good in areas or number one in areas, then that's also going to be kind of going on too. So you can see some overlap in some of these things. But confirmation bias is, hey, I believe Young Living is the number one or best company, and here's all the blogs, here's all the articles, here's all the videos, here's all the press releases, here's all the links and sources that support that conclusion, and that's confirmation bias. And it's a lot of time, everyone does it. I do it. If I'm looking to come to a conclusion, I want things that support that. But the main point I'm trying to make with all this is people aren't aware of these things, and that's normal. that's understandable. Like, unless you're a psychology major or you've studied like human behavior and how you interact with, especially with like conflict resolution or conflict management or things like that, then these topics are not going to be on the top of your head or tip of your tongue. And I had to learn these topics by watching other YouTubers who focused on, conflict resolution and communication skills and psychology. And it's so important to know these things because you should know yourself. You should, know thyself, as it said, right? And be able to interact with others in a way that is constructive, in a way that adds value, in a way that leads to an intelligent discussion, in a way that doesn't distract and basically focus on things that are out of scope. A lot of times people will make comments like, like on how I look, or basically make assumptions about how my previous life was, like, oh, I bet you did stuff in your high school days, Lance, or college days, and it's just like, well, it's just like, that's not addressing the main points of the topics in the video. Like, those are distracting and out of scope. Like, let's focus on each individual thing at a time and let's explore that. But at the end of the day, reasonable people are focused on the truth, understanding, and finding solutions for things. And the unreasonable people are focused on really just being right, winning, and the problems, and blaming somebody else for the problems as well. And so that's where some of that shaming language comes in that I see on some of my videos where they're like, shame on you, right, for speaking the truth, right? And I'm just like, or in their mind, they maybe not see it as speaking the truth, they just see it as digging up dirt. But at the end of the day, it is fact-based information. And the reason why I create these videos is because people ask about them, number one. Number two, people make half-truths and leave comments that are just like not even fully true. It's just like, or they can't even verify. They're just kind of like throwing a bomb or a grenade and running away, and it's just like, there's damage from that, number one. And number two, like, that didn't solve anything. That just creates more like, dissemination or spreading of half-truths and misinformation. So like, let's get to the bottom of it, let's learn what it is, and let me be transparent about things, focus on the facts. I do add commentary, which is going to be some opinion-based stuff, but at the end of the day, somebody can come to their own conclusion and do whatever they want. And I know sometimes people even like are like, well, I'm definitely not going to buy doTERRA now because of this video, Lance, see, and just like, and sometimes they like, it's almost like they're threatening me with their lack of purchase, which is kind of like saying, I'm not going to eat broccoli because you told me that it has antioxidants, and I don't even like antioxidants. And it's just like, well, antioxidants are good for you, and they actually help with free radical damage, and whether you like them or not still doesn't change the fact that they can help you. But if you still don't want to eat it, I can't force you to, so I guess you just won't be eating broccoli. Would you like some cauliflower instead? It's just like, people are just like, and for me, I'm just like, I don't really care what you do. Like, I care about speaking the truth, seeking understanding, and finding natural solutions for things. Whether you agree with me or like what I'm saying, or whatever, that's on you. Like, I'm like, that person is just going to be that person. And so I think for me, this video is important because it kind of lets you understand where I'm coming from more, and also to help on the education side. Because at the end of the day, like, when I leave comments on stuff, it's designed to address what people are saying, but do so in a way that is reasonable and educational. And sometimes that can be perceived by some people as condescending, or me trying to throw psychology at them, and it's not. Like, for me, it's just, again, so important to be reasonable, be educational, and address what they're saying. And I'm not going to get super emotional or like troll them back or do some crazy stuff. Like, no, I'm just keep it real, be 100% real. And a lot of times just people can't handle the truth, and that's fine. Like, and that's why I encourage people to unsubscribe, to go to different channels where they're going to have a better experience, because I want you to have the best YouTube experience possible. And if it's not watching these videos, and if it's not getting all emotionally stirred and triggered from my other videos, then that's fine. But if it's like, hey, like, okay, Lance is approaching things differently, like, he's actually leaving a comment, oh, okay, that's rare. He's actually responding in a respectful or reasonable way. He's not calling people out their name. He's not cussing at them. He's not doing this or that, right? But he is going in on them on some real stuff, though. Like, Lance is not holding back on the realness, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to be And that can be perceived as negative sometimes, but I'm not being negative. I'm just being real. And that realness is going to have truth, and the truth can sometimes hurt. Because if we're not dealing with something because we haven't named it or talked about it, when somebody brings it up, it's almost like, whoa, now I got to deal with this. And I don't like the way that makes me feel, so I'm going to lash back. And that's not a mature way to do things. It really should be like, all right, let me take what they said, let me pull the truth out of it, and let me work on me. Right, let me work on me. Let me personally develop. Let me read a book, watch a video, do a seminar, something that's going to help me grow into a better version of myself, and not get, I could still get triggered off of something that contradicts my values or belief system, but I'm not going to lash back. I'm going to try to have an intelligent discussion that's respectful and that's focused on being reasonable, right? And reasonable is just being humble, being responsible, being reliable, having that self-awareness, right? And so we're just focused on being the best version of ourselves. And this video for me is a little therapeutic in the sense that now you can kind of see where I'm coming from, but hopefully it's been educational and helpful as well. So as you get haters, right, in life, real life, face to face, or digitally on social media or YouTube or whatever, you kind of have a way to handle it. But also, the face-to-face realm is so important because whenever there's people, there's always going to be problems. Like, nobody's perfect, right? We're always going to have people that agree or disagree with us. There's going to be honeymoon phases with some people, and there's going to be falling outs, and everything. It just has that. And for me, it's just important to just tell like it is, be respectful, be reasonable with people, and really not hold back on the truth. Like, I'm not going to hold back. Like, that's it. So, well, anyways, hopefully you liked today's video, got some value out of it, or if you didn't, that's okay too. Again, I welcome opinions and disagreeing. Let's just, at the end of the day, if we can agree to disagree, that's cool too. But let's keep the respect. You know what I mean? Like, let's keep the respect. All right, well, hit the like button if you did. Hit subscribe for future video updates, and most importantly, check out the links in the description below so you can continue to get your learn on.